2, 1, clap. Lovely, thank you. I am happy. We're about to start, aren't we? A bit close to each other. Anyway. How have you found returning to racing after COVID?
Yeah, I think it's been. I can't really comment on other races, but I think this has been interesting for various reasons. COVID. And inflation, maybe. I know that sounds a bit grown up to sort of mention it, but I think it has played a part. And yeah, I think having come to these races, I think I have heard, stories that there are other races that are, I guess the concert would be slightly less well attended, and it's some sort of post-COVID hangover or change, or I'm not sure it's related to the pandemic. The illness. I think it's related to people perhaps changing, what they do and maybe choosing not to get back into racing. So I think it's great to be out and about, obviously, and traveling and seeing people. And but yeah, I think it is. The world is a little different 2 to 3 years later, and RC included. So
have you? How's the season been for you overall? It's the final round.
Yeah. I don't think it's been easy, but the great thing is, the team as a whole have, as always, hunkered down and stuck at it and been patient and worked hard and professional, and we're an afternoon away from finishing season 2. So yeah, I guess in some respects I expected it to be easier, but actually over the last 2 years, well, we weren't racing. We made more changes than we thought. So, we had to get into our stride again. But we're ambitious, and I think that's part of the problem. And if one or all of us has a good idea, we're inclined to implement it because it's a good idea. We don't stop to think or find out until we're doing it for real, how much pressure that puts on us. So, I suppose I have this naive idea that one day there'll be an easy event, an easy weekend, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. And but it's fine. We get into a groove, and we always show up and we get it done.
I think some of the changes have been popular and some of them haven't. Like, for instance, gate starts at every event, I think, has been very popular for viewers. I think RCGP Loves RC2 has been really innovative. Mm-hmm. Some of the changes have been really well received.
Yeah, I think so. I think the 3 things would be gate starts at every event, the rush, and RCGP Loves RC2. And we've only, I think we had the idea for RCGP Loves RC2 between events 1 and events 2. And when you get to it late on a Saturday, it feels like a bit much. And the RC2 guys are wondering what it's all about. The team guys, a little fed up. But typically, it's the thing that produces the biggest smiles and perhaps the biggest reward for everybody. The rush, I think, has been. I hope it's been popular. It works so well online. It works. It doesn't work quite as well on site. But once you've got the graphics, the intros, the replays, the timing, the commentary online, it's a fantastic product. And then gate starts, we redesigned the gate so it works better. We've had perfect gate starts. Of course, there are many that aren't. But the more people use them, I think the more they get better at it and accept that it's part of what we do. So we've introduced practices for RC2 to use them. So always trying to work at making it better. But I think those are the 3 big changes that I can think of, and then a myriad of small things, that we're all aware of, sort of behind the scenes, to pull it all together.
I think your role doesn't allow you to watch much of the racing on site, and you usually refer back to it and watch it after the event, but I guess you would know.
Can you just jump in a minute? I can hear you doing that.
Oh.
Everything else fine, that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you might not be able to comment as much on this event. having not seen the racing is because of the way your role works at the event. But I definitely feel like the racing has got a lot cleaner. We had like insane bedlam on track, which was exciting, but also had its criticisms as well, because it wasn't kind of pure racing, it was just super smash. But and particularly at the last event of 2019, the gate starts could have been seen to kind of build that up even more, because it's a crazy way to start a race. But you stuck with it, and I think it's worked in that the racing has become a lot more calm. And in my view, we've had better quality racing this season than in season 1.
Yeah, I hope so. I think the gate starts are most commonly used for RCGP. Some drivers, David for example, has done 8 RCGPs now. Lee was going to be close to doing 8. And what we learnt before the gate starts in season 1 was, new drivers perhaps struggled in their first event, but once they'd run through the whole format, they fared much better in events 2 and 3. And I think the similar could be said for the gate starts, that a lot of the RCGP guys, even if they come for one event, are running the gates 12, 15, 20 times between practices and racing. So yeah, I think it does work well. And I think also we had a change of race director. Well, a few things. I suppose, we introduced heads-up racing in season 1. It's at least for us, more familiar now. We had a change of race director. And I think as a group, a bit of a sort of rolling group, everybody has adapted to that combination of drivers, race director, gate starts, to making, and also perhaps recognizing that even in a shorter race, the gate start isn't the be-all and end-all. Whereas I think maybe there was a bit of panic came down if you had a bad first gate start. So yeah, I think overall the racing, the racing, I don't know if it's got better, but it's sort of speaking for itself now within the context of everything that we're doing. So,
as a viewer, I think the racing has been better valued this season. Like we haven't had the same winner at every round. For instance, it's been much tighter, much closer. Canas, even Spencer Hecker, it's fantastic to see him win yesterday.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is to do with how RCGP is almost driven to make changes, to be innovative, like constantly be innovative. And some of those work really well, and some of them don't work so well. Less popular, I guess, has been the pay-per-view.
Correct.
Whilst I say it has been better value to watch, I think. You've gone away from pay-per-view for this. What's the situation with pay-per-view? Because there is some pay-per-view at this event, but the racing's free, right?
Correct. So we've tried all sorts of ideas to helping to spread the cost of putting these events on. Fairly obvious things: entries, team entries, sponsorship, and so on. Sort of what we sort of considered some fairly innovative stuff that perhaps wasn't as popular as we hoped it might be. And then over the, I suppose, last couple of years, copying all sorts of formats that run pay-per-view, I thought that would be a good idea. Personally, I still think it is, but I understand why it was unpopular. So essentially, we had a model where 80% of everything was behind the paywall and sort of 20% was visible for the first 3 events this year. Became clear to me, both sort of independently and by suggestion or strenuous insistence, that really wasn't a good idea. And I agree. I think if we were in season 5 of racing and we'd done it, it might have been simple and accepted and successful. As it was a little early because we'd had a 2-year break and lost all our momentum. So now the idea moving forwards, as has been trialed this event, for event 4, is 80% is free to air, so you can follow the racing. And then if you want some sort of premium pieces, they're going to be cheaply available, or are cheaply available behind a paywall, so that you can support RCGP, you can receive the content, and hopefully vicariously through supporting RCGP, supporting the industry, because so much of the media is available both as a racer, or maybe you'll stumble across it as a non-racer, which of course is something we're trying to help with.
Can you explain to the layman, or maybe just the average racer, why this race is slightly different as a financial piece to put on to other races? They might think, ironically, that it's kind of a bit greedy to do pay-per-view and not really understand or grasp the whole situation.
Yeah, I don't think it's greedy. I think it was a necessity, but that doesn't mean that it was the right decision. So I don't want anybody ever to think that because RCGP sort of self-proclaimed professional event, that in any way that implies that we are not fans of racing and clubs and tracks at every level. I'm as passionate about groups getting together with 10 people running 10 different cars and racing around a track as I am about the Worlds, the Euros, Raw, our events. But this is where we, as a group, and I thought we could help the industry. And that was, tackling it sort of top down rather than bottom up. Of course, clubs and all these sorts of things need to be strong and plentiful as well. But what was the question?
How it's different to other...
Oh, yeah. So there's lots of ways to write a race budget, and there's lots of ways to invest money or make money. Typically, it really depends on your starting point a little, but certainly typically the greatest cost, or one of the largest costs, is promoting the race. Media, commentators, race directors, photographers, live streaming, perhaps even recording. So we took a choice that investing in that in the short term, or I took a decision that investing in that in the short term was the way to promote the series and RC in general. I'm answering this really badly.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. I was thinking when you were saying that there's a lot of popular races that don't have any media. They don't live stream. Why is it? Why? And there's a lot of races that are streamed very haphazardly or covered very differently. Why is it so important to you that RCGP is covered in a way that turns out to be quite expensive?
Because I believe that RC racing is exciting from a sporting perspective, vert racing, and from a story and character perspective. And you can't tell those stories and show that competition if people aren't there to record it, whether that's commentators, race directors, media, video, photography, podcasts. And whether your race is $500 profitable or $50,000 profitable, you may or may not choose to spend that profit or any point up to that on media to promote your race, promote the stories, promote the competition, and promote RC in general. I chose to invest in the media, at the expense of immediately being profitable. And we can't, if it's a rising tide lifts all ships. If people see what we do, because many may not know that racing even exists, just bashing or using your RC car in a park or in your neighborhood, then this might just capture their attention enough to take hobbyists into racing or take non-RC people into hobbying. So, plus I think, I follow quite a lot of different sports. Being good at anything is amazing. The people who are good at this are just as good as anybody playing snooker, playing American football, basketball, anything. The talent is unbelievable. There's a lot of characters in this industry, and I don't know, I think it's think it's worth telling those two stories.
You must feel like come a long way since the first physical round in Manila. Sitting here now.
Yeah, I think so. I think on the one hand, certain things are a lot easier. On the other hand, it's, I think as I mentioned earlier, just as hard work as every round is hard work. But yeah, I think sometimes I'm the worst person to ask. But my perspective on this is it's too difficult for me to be objective. But yeah, I think overall, broadly, although not articulating it terribly well, I think we have come a long way. I think 5 years and 2 seasons, it's somewhere between 1 to 2 seasons more than anybody else thought we'd ever do, and 1 to 2 seasons more than anybody else has ever done.
Yeah, absolutely. RCGP was at the Worlds in 2018. RCGP was at the Worlds this year, actively being there just to try and bring the industry together and move forward. How do you feel that's going?
Honestly, I'm as frustrated by it as I've ever been. A small group of people, aligned, passionate, motivated, hardworking people working together, and the key part there really is aligned, is the only way things ever change. Societally, big, small, or indeed RC. And the negativity, the ignorance, the conspiracy, the hatred, the bloody-mindedness continues to frustrate me. And I think it's a shame, because we, not us, not RCGP, we, the industry, have something. And if we can't get our act together, we're never going to get to wherever we can get to, wherever that is. And I think it's more than we have now, bigger than we have now. Whatever your rainbow, whatever your dream is of where RC can get to, I think it's much further away than it is now, but we won't get to it if we carry on with some of this playground pettiness. And I'm a pretty private person, and most of the time reasonably civilized, and I'm saddened as part of the industry, if I am part of it, and exhausted by it as an individual.
Yeah. What does RCGP need right now? What does it need to get further in the direction that you want it to?
Well, for me, I think it's for people to be open-minded. For people to look to the future, for people to cooperate and work together and forgive, petty jealousies or, well, heavens, maybe significant issues for the greater good of what we're all involved in. Whether your part of contributing to RC is in a particular niche sector of, titanium parts or something, or whether it's, much more broadly with, shops and brands and, if we're the series to galvanize around, let's galvanize. If not, and there's some sort of belief that this product is needed somehow, somebody else create or pick up something and run with it so that we all benefit. So, the old sticks and stones thing. Just forgive and forget, and perhaps be cautious and look to the future and galvanize around something.
I guess you're tired of talking about the elephant in the room.
No.
No, not tired of talking about it.
No.
There's a few objections to teams getting involved, and one of them is that it's very expensive to attend a race.
Mm-hmm.
There's
It's
already
expensive to attend all races if the travel part has been considered.
There's a lot of races in the calendar
Yeah.
that are well established. That's one reason. Another reason seems to be revolving, whether it's an excuse or not, and maybe your take on that's interesting, around JQ.
Yeah. Well, with season 1 or 2018, let's say 19 and 20, so the virtual series, season 1 and 2020 with no season, the argument was Joseph is too involved. You know, he owns RCGP, he's the spokesperson, he's all these things, he has to have less involvement. That came from people involved in RCGP, that came from teams and, you know, drivers, all sorts of people. Now he is, and that's still a complaint. Joseph's a very passionate, insistent, and interesting character. He's made no secret ever of his belief that RC needs to be more professional, in his opinion, and needs to galvanise around a series where all the drivers attend. So it happens that he's involved in this, and this exists, and for the most part it's achieving those goals. But I'm surprised, if it's real, I'm surprised that JQ continues to be as much as a problem as people say. And if it's an excuse, then the other things that are tricky and important, like calendars and drivers and budgets and other races, must be taking more precedence. And look, I deal with JQ regularly, and he can be a monster pain in the arse, but to say that he's the reason that people aren't joining this, particularly if it's just like a default position that Joseph's involved, so you're not joining, I think it plays back into being more open-minded, thinking of the future, forgiving, you know, misdeeds, minor or major, in the past, and galvanizing around something. There's more malicious stuff going on than Joseph talking openly and honestly about how he feels.
Really?
Yeah, much more. But I understand it's a problem. I'm not done talking about it, but I'm done really tolerating it as a real excuse not to.
Can you be drawn on those other things you allude to?
Well, I don't know, just I suppose I would, not really, not specifically, but the really vicious, malicious conspiracy theory nonsense, at least I believe it to be. I mean, I realise there's two sides and it's an opinion, but it's very tiring. I mean, if anybody thinks we're doing anything other than trying to make our race and RC better, then they're out of their minds. On a sort of conspiracy side of things. And anybody who's dealt with me, I hope, even if we've fallen out over something, that comes away genuinely thinking I was trying to get one over, or then, you know, we've had a serious misunderstanding, because that's just not how I work. But, you know, it's all personal experiences. But I heard something this weekend, one or two things leading up to this weekend, and one thing this weekend, and it's just eye-rollingly frustrating, because if that's how this industry works, then no amount of time, money or effort will ever crack the problems we face.
When we spoke for the first time in Austria, after the first insane event in Manila,
Yes.
you were just about kind of holding it together, and then we spoke at the end of 2019. I guess I would say elated. Seemed that
Yeah.
way. How would you how do you compare how you feel now?
Well, it's a very fair question and also an awful question, you know, an afternoon or two, I guess, with packing up a bit more, 2 days before finishing this season. But yeah, tired, encouraged by the things that go well, frustrated by the things that go badly. Really grateful and pleased with the support that we do receive. Extremely humbled by my team, our team, the RCGP administration team, I guess, but you know, even if nobody had shown up, nobody, not a soul had showed up, dragging this thing around the world 8 times has been an achievement. It is not to belittle any fixed race, a small club or an enormous, fantastic facility like Redovan. But no matter how hard it is doing it at home, you need to try, and there are races, of course, that appreciate this, you know, who travel, but perhaps not to a new site on every occasion. You need to do it our way, arguably the hardest way, to realize what an achievement it is just to get, you know, ready for Friday morning. You know, you throw in excited racers and mechanics and spectators and all sorts of things and weather, and you know, it gets tricky and complex by magnitudes, not just percentages.
I don't know how much time we have left in terms of track time, but I guess one kind of final question. There's several team owners, team bosses, people within the industry. There are frustrations, but there's several who've said this season you cannot allow RCGP to stop. Like, the industry needs it. What's your take on that?
Well, I suppose the flip side of that is there are plenty who aren't interested in supporting it. But taking the positive that we can't allow it to stop, we need to find can't allow it to stop. Okay, get on board, help, because this is a unwieldy beast to keep on the road exactly as it is.
Okay. Too early to ask what your thoughts are for the future of RCGP?
No, there's a lot of thought gone into it. I think there needs to be some changes, but the basic format of small races, small entries, lots of coverage, a series that travels to different countries and different facilities would remain in place. But you know, plenty of challenges with hosts and calendars and drivers, but we've faced them before, so a lot of thought has gone into it already.
Cool. Anything you think I've missed that we could go over?
Only a thank you, I guess. Thank you to the teams and brands that have supported us through thick and thin. Thank you to my team, our team. Thank you to the entries, the drivers, the RC2 guys, the fathers, the friends, the families that come out. Thank you to the host facilities, a big part of this. Specifically here, thank you to Brent and Beach and the Badlands crew. And you know, I think it was at the end of the driven series, it said thank you to the haters too, and yeah, I guess thank you to them too, because they're not always wrong. There are some bits that need attention, and we take a cue from them occasionally. So just thank you for the support and coming and racing, and for the most part enjoying it, because that's all we're here to provide. Bit of fun and professionalism, for want of a better description, and exposure for RC racing, specifically 8-scale nitro off-road.
Well, thank you to you, because you must be a bit crazy, but I don't think the industry deserves what you've done for it.
Well, that's very kind.